Hello, I'm Evie. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel, like my video. Are you ready to watch party ideas? Let's get started.
Ever wondered how to throw a historical figure costume party? Well, you're in the right place because that's exactly what we're diving into today. Imagine hosting a gathering where the likes of Cleopatra, Abraham Lincoln, and Albert Einstein mingle and make merry. Historical figure costume parties not only offer a fun and unique twist on the traditional party scene, but they also provide an opportunity to learn about different eras and personalities that have shaped our world. Whether you're a history buff, a fan of fancy dress, or just someone looking for a distinctive party theme, a historical figure costume party is a fantastic way to engage and entertain your guests. And the best part? You don't need to be a history expert to pull it off. We're here to guide you every step of the way, from choosing a historical era to deciding on food and drink. So, stay tuned to learn how you can throw the best historical figure costume party. The first step in planning your historical figure costume party is choosing an era. The era you select will be the heartbeat of your party, influencing everything from the decor to the costumes, food, and activities. Consider the enchanting world of the Renaissance, a time of great discovery and intellectual curiosity. A Renaissance-themed party would open up a wealth of opportunities for costumes. Imagine your guests arriving as famous painters, explorers, or even royalty. The food could be a grand feast of hearty stews, fresh breads, and aged cheeses, reminiscent of the period's lavish banquets. Or perhaps the glamour and sophistication of the Roaring Twenties is more your style. This era of flappers, jazz, and speakeasies could inspire a lively party, with guests dressed as famous figures like Al Capone or Zelda Fitzgerald. The food and drink could be inspired by the era's infamous prohibition, with mocktails and finger foods that harken back to the underground speakeasies. Alternatively, you could opt for the ancient Greek era, a time of philosophy, mythology, and grand architecture. Picture your guests arriving as famous philosophers like Plato or Aristotle, or as Greek gods and goddesses. The food could be a Mediterranean feast, with olives, feta cheese, and plenty of wine. You could also dive into the Victorian era, a time of industrial revolution and strict social codes. Guests could come as famous authors, inventors, or monarchs. Think hearty English fare for the food, like shepherd's pie and scones, and perhaps a spot of tea. The possibilities are endless, and each era brings with it its own unique charm and appeal. So, take some time to consider which era resonates most with you. Think about the costumes, the food, the decorations, and the activities that would best bring that era to life in your party. Once you've chosen your era, you're ready to move on to the next step: invitations. Invitations set the tone for your party. Make them count. Let's dive right into how to create themed invitations that match your chosen historical era. First, think about the aesthetic of your era. If it's the Roaring Twenties, consider Art Deco designs, or for a Renaissance party, opt for a parchment look. The invitation doesn't just have to be a piece of paper either. Consider digital options or even small trinkets that can serve as both an invitation and a keepsake. Now let's make these invites fun and informative. Include a brief description of the era and suggest costume ideas. Maybe even add a fun fact about a notable figure from that time. This will not only educate your guests, but also spark their excitement. And don't forget to make it clear, costumes are mandatory. With your invitation sent out, it's time to focus on the costumes. Costumes are the heart of a historical figure costume party. They bring the past to life and transform an ordinary gathering into a vibrant tableau of history. So let's dive into some creative costume ideas for our chosen era. If we're going back to the regal times of kings and queens, think about iconic figures like Queen Elizabeth I with her elaborate gowns and high starched collars, or perhaps King Henry VIII with his opulent robes and signature feathered cap. For these costumes, you might want to consider renting from a local costume shop or scouring online marketplaces for the perfect ensemble. But what if we're heading into the jazz-filled Roaring Twenties? Well, you could channel your inner flapper with a sequin dress, bobbed hair, and long string of pearls. Or take on the persona of a dapper gentleman in a pinstriped suit and fedora. Local thrift stores or online vintage shops can be treasure troves for pieces that evoke this era. If you're feeling really crafty, you could also create your own costumes. For instance, if you're stepping into the shoes of a Renaissance artist like Leonardo da Vinci, you might fashion a simple tunic and cap from fabric, then add a faux paint palette and brush for that artistic touch. Or, if you're journeying to ancient Greece, perhaps you'll wrap yourself in a white sheet toga style, cinched with a gold rope belt. Add a laurel wreath headband, and voila, you're an ancient philosopher or Greek deity. Remember, costumes don't have to be perfect replicas. They just need to capture the spirit of the historical figure you're emulating. And most importantly, they should be fun to wear. You can also encourage your guests to get creative and really embrace their chosen characters. It's all about stepping out of our present-day selves and immersing ourselves in the rich tapestry of the past. So, whether you're buying, renting, or making your costumes, remember to start early to avoid any last-minute stress. With costumes sorted, let's move on to the decorations. Decorations can transport your guests to another era. Think of it as a time machine, but instead of gears and levers, we're using props, colors, and lighting. Let's start with props. They are the physical elements that give your party a tangible authenticity. For a roaring 20s party, think about including gramophones, feather boas, and vintage cocktail glasses. If you're going medieval, consider decorating with goblets, tapestries, or even a faux suit of armor. Remember, the goal is to immerse your guests in the chosen era, so don't shy away from being a bit theatrical. Next, consider the color palette. Colors have the power to evoke emotions and set the mood. For a Victorian-era party, you might want to stick with deep, rich hues like burgundy, emerald green, and navy blue. A 60s party, on the other hand, would call for bright and bold colors like hot pink, electric blue, and sunny yellow. The key is to research the era you've chosen and replicate the colors that were popular at the time. Lighting, then, is the final touch that brings everything together. It's like the cherry on top of your historical sundae. For a speakeasy-inspired party, dim, warm lighting would create that secretive, intimate atmosphere. If you're throwing a Renaissance feast, imagine the flickering glow of candles scattered around the room. Lighting should complement your props and colors, enhancing the overall ambiance. And there you have it. By paying attention to props, colors, and lighting, you can create a party environment that truly embodies your chosen historical era. It's all about bringing the past to life and giving your guests an unforgettable experience. But remember, a party isn't just about the visuals. The food and drinks you serve should also reflect the era you're celebrating. So let's put on our aprons and step into the kitchen. Now that you've set the scene, let's talk about food and drinks. Food and drinks can be another way to immerse your guests in the chosen era. Imagine serving a royal feast from the medieval times, or a decadent spread from the roaring 20s. Each era has its own unique culinary delights that you can incorporate into your menu. For example, if you're hosting a Victorian-themed party, consider serving tea sandwiches, scones with clotted cream, and a classic Victoria sponge cake. For a more exotic touch, how about a Cleopatra-themed party with a spread of traditional Egyptian dishes like falafel, hummus, and baklava? In terms of drinks, you could serve cocktails that were popular during the chosen era. The Prohibition era, for instance, saw the rise of speakeasies and inventive cocktails. You could serve a classic old-fashioned or a sidecar to transport your guests back to this exciting time. Presentation is key. Use serving dishes and glassware that reflect the era. With all these elements combined, you're ready to throw an unforgettable historical figure costume party. Let's recap what we've learned today. Our journey through history began by choosing a unique era that would set the tone for our entire party. From the Roaring 20s to the regal Victorian times, the options are endless. Next, we delved into the art of creating invitations that echo the chosen era, capturing the essence of the time period and sparking excitement amongst your guests. We then explored a trove of costume ideas, encouraging guests to dress up as iconic figures from the selected era. Remember, the key is to be creative and have fun with it. Setting the scene with decorations is crucial. We discussed how to transform your venue into a historical backdrop, using era-specific elements for authenticity. And of course, we can't forget about food and drinks. We highlighted how to incorporate traditional dishes and beverages from your chosen era to give your guests a taste of history. With these steps, you're now ready to throw a historical figure costume party that will be the talk of the town. Happy planning!